So, The Sun and the Star is coming out soon, and our boys have been through a lot. It's been quite a few real-world years since both of them were introduced. So, just in case any of you have forgotten anything, let's recap. Also, spoilers are inbound for the original series, the Heroes of Olympus, and the Trials of Apollo. You have been warned. Nico D'Angelo was born before World War II in a conservative Catholic home. His life was relatively normal until the day when Zeus discovered that Hades had had demigod children and he tried to kill them. Hades was able to protect the kids, but not their mother. In a fit of rage, Hades curses the Oracle of Delphi to not move on to a new host as long as his children are outcasts. Then he orders Alecto the Fury to take the children to the Lotus Casino, where they remain frozen in time until the events of the Titan's Curse. Since the D'Angelos were brought to Westover Hall boarding school, Percy, Annabeth, Thalia, and Grover showed up to try and bring them to camp. They are attacked by a manticore named Dr. Thorn, who has the team on the ropes until Artemis and her hunters show up to drive the monster off, although Annabeth tumbles over the cliff with it. Artemis goes off on her own hunt for some important monster, but not before Bianca accepts her offer to join the hunt, leaving Nico with no one aside from those he would meet at camp. Nico resents his sister for this decision, but he still cares about her. After some time at camp, the Oracle appears with a quest saying that Artemis has been captured by the Titans, and that the hunters and campers must work together to rescue her, and that one of them will die on the quest. Nico finds Percy, who has been spying on the hunters using Annabeth's invisibility camp as they were planning the quest. Nico asks Percy to go so he can protect Bianca, and Percy agrees. When they return from the quest, however, Nico finds out that Bianca is dead. He lashes out, angry at Percy for failing to protect her. Then a bunch of skeletons attack the camp, and Nico defeats them easily by opening a massive crack in the earth, revealing his parentage as a son of Hades, before storming off and leaving camp. When we see Nico again in the Battle of the Labyrinth, it's at first through an Iris message to Percy. We see Nico and a ghost, later revealed to be King Minos, who convinces him to try to revive his sister by sacrificing someone who cheated death, who Percy thinks will end up being him. Percy then gets one more Iris message with Nico, who goes to consult with the ghost of Theseus regarding the revival ritual. Eventually, Percy and co meet up with Nico, who isn't too happy to see them. After Percy cleans up some demon horse poop, they summon Bianca's spirit, who tells Nico that she doesn't want to be brought back, and that he shouldn't be so angry with Percy for her death. Percy and co leave, but Nico is tricked into going back into the labyrinth, and he manages to defeat King Minos, declaring himself the Ghost King, and then joins the quest, helping out the group in getting away from Mount Othrys and defending the camp when it is attacked by the Titans' army of monsters. Having been outed as a child of the Big Three, Nico says he needs to leave and find his own way despite Percy's protests. He shows up again at Percy's birthday, saying that he has a plan of some sort. Before the events of the Last Olympian, we get to see the Ghost King one more time. In the Sword of Hades, Nico, Percy, and Thalia are summoned to the underworld to try and recover a sword Hades was making to reanimate the dead. They run into a titan named Iapetus, the titan of the moon and brother of Hyperion, who Percy defeats by pulling him into the underworld river Lethe that wiped his memory, and then tells him his name is Bob and he becomes an underworld janitor. They recover the sword, but before they part ways, Nico asks Percy if he's thought about the plan. Percy said he thought about it, but he has some reservations. In the Last Olympian, we finally find out what the plan is, for Percy to bathe in the river Styx, which would give him the Curse of Achilles. They succeed, but there's some disconnect between the Lord of the Underworld and his son. Also, though Percy is able to leave after an escape from a prison and a skirmish with Hades, Nico ends up learning the truth about his past, and Hades isn't too happy about it. Eventually, Nico convinces Hades to join the fight to defend Olympus from Kronos, and thanks to that effort, the world is saved. The son of Hades is in a better place mentally now, but he isn't fully stable yet. Also, since Nico has been accepted at camp, the Oracle is finally able to move on to a new host, Rachel Dare, and gives the prophecy of the Seven that will lead into the next series. In the Heroes of Olympus, we are now properly introduced to Will Solus. He was in the Last Olympian, but here is when we get to see what he does at camp. He's a healer, and a pretty great one at that. He's also very good at negotiating, and can even manage to calm down Clarice, the rage-driven daughter of Ares that tried to shove Percy's face in a toilet on his first day, apparently trusts this guy. The next time we see Nico, it's during the Son of Neptune, where he has met his half-sister Hazel Levesque, and while he does care about her, he still isn't over Bianca's death. Then Percy shows up with his memory wiped, and Nico tells Hazel and Frank how reliable Percy usually is. Nico then goes to look for the Doors of Death in order to close them so no more monsters can escape the underworld as orchestrated by Gaia. Unfortunately, when Mark of Athena rolls around, after some more underworld shenanigans, he's captured and trapped in a jar, eating special pomegranate seeds to keep himself in a death-like state in order to survive. Percy and Jason manage to rescue him, but then after entering the lair of Arachne and recovering the Athena Parthenos, Percy and Annabeth fall into Tartarus, and the best Nico can do is join the rest of the 7 Half-Bloods, and hopefully meet up with Percy and Annabeth on the other side of the Doors of Death. In the House of Hades, Nico accompanies the 7 on the quest, helping wherever he can along the way. But when he accompanies Jason Grace to confront Cupid, the god of love, he's forced to admit that he had a crush on Percy in order to progress, coming out of the closet in one of the most unpleasant ways possible. Jason is supportive, but Nico still wants it to be kept a secret. After some more questing, they reach the Doors of Death and rescue Percy and Annabeth. But while they were in Tartarus, Percy and Annabeth were helped along and even saved by Bob, who stood by them because Nico had vouched for them, even after Bob learns the truth about his identity. Unfortunately though, Bob wasn't able to escape Tartarus as he had so desperately wanted to do, and he had possibly sacrificed himself to allow the duo to escape. Finally, with the 7 Half-Bloods reunited, they need to take the Athena Parthenos to Camp Half-Blood while they continue their quest. Nico offers to make the journey since he can transport the giant statue by shadow travel. Reyna and Coach Hedge agree to go with him. Thus, we reach the events of the Blood of Olympus. Nico travels all over with Reyna and Hedge, fighting off attacks from Gaia's minions along the way, but using his powers so much exhausts him, though he and Reyna are able to open up about their pasts and their struggles, which ends up benefiting them both. Eventually, they reach Camp Half-Blood right as the Roman army is about to attack. Fortunately, Nico manages to run into some of the Greek demigods, one of whom is Will Solus. Nico goes to help the Greeks, but Will tells him not to use his powers because he can tell that Nico is exhausted. They sabotage some of the onagers and stall the assault long enough for Reyna to bring the Athena Parthenos in with the help of some Pegasi and stop the conflict altogether. Then Gaia starts to wake, and the 7 Half-Bloods show up to stop her. Then Leo supposedly dies stopping her, and Nico is now much more welcomed at camp than he thought possible thanks to his actions. And he finally confesses to Percy, only to reveal that he's gotten over his crush. And Percy takes it pretty well. Nico ends his appearance in the Heroes of Olympus by walking back to Will Solus. The next time we see Nico, he's in a relationship with Will Solus at the beginning of the Trials of Apollo. And even the depowered Apollo is still supportive of his son's relationship with Nico. Also, Nico sits with the Apollo kids and participates in a few camp games during the time Apollo is at camp. When Nero's Colossus attacks the camp, the boys help out, and Apollo is able to take the Colossus down. Then Leo finally shows up again with Calypso and Festus, and Nico joins the camp in giving Leo a beating. Fast forward to the Tower of Nero, and we see him in consultation with Dionysus, since he suffered from PTSD when he felt Jason's death during the events of the Burning Maze. And since Mr. D is the god of madness, he's able to console the boy. Then Nico agrees to help Apollo and Meg in the last segment of their journey, despite the disapproval of Mr. D. After a visit to Rachel Dare and escaping from some demon cows, Nico shadow travels with the team to meet with the Troglodytes, an underground species that can tunnel very quickly and can help sabotage a massive Greek fire weapon under New York. It takes some convincing, but they are able to get the Troglodytes to side with them. And not only do they sabotage the Doomsday device, they also join the assault on Nero's tower in New York. Nico even attacks the Emperor directly, but it doesn't work too well, and Will shows up to save his boyfriend and his dad. After Nero is killed, Apollo goes to confront Python. The last time we see them, it's after Apollo gets his power back, and Nico asks Rachel for some prophetic advice on entering Tartarus. Apparently he's been hearing a voice from Tartarus, possibly Iapetus, though Hades has forbidden coming back to the underworld, so Nico plans to get help from the Troglodytes to get in. Apollo can't help, but before the god of the sun leaves, Rachel tells a prophecy to Nico and Will, though we don't know what it is yet. And that's all we know thus far, at least at the time of recording this, aside from the preview. In any case, I'm very excited, as this is the first Riordanverse book since Tower of Nero, and the first one ever that I'll be reading on release day, as all the others I had to read after the fact. Nothing to do now but wait. And as always, the Mythos archives are always open.